On Friday night, Donald Trump dropped a bombshell announcing a 100% tariff on all Chinese imports. Within hours, the markets went into free fall. Stocks plunged, tech was hammered, and panic spread across the globe. So, what exactly happened? Why did this announcement cause such chaos? And what does this mean for the US, Chinese, and global economies? Let's break it down. Hi, welcome back to the channel. As you've just heard, Donald Trump's announcement on Friday has caused panic in the global markets. We have seen stock markets crashing, and actually the situation could get worse because the markets have reacted to the initial posting that Donald Trump issued onto his Truth Social website. However, after the markets closed, he issued another post. So let's go through those two posts. Now, strap yourself in because this is a long one. This is actually the longest post that I have ever seen Donald Trump posting onto his Truth Social website. So this was posted in the morning on Friday, and it says, "Some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths and virtually anything else they can think of, even if it's not manufactured in China. Nobody has ever seen anything like this, but essentially it would clog the markets and make life difficult for virtually every country in the world, especially for China. We've been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this great trade hostility, which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a very good one, thereby making this move on trade an even more surprising one. I've always felt that they've been lying in wait, and now, as usual, I've been proven right. There is no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive, but that seems to have been their plan for quite some time, starting with the magnets and other elements that they have quietly amassed into somewhat of a monopoly position, a rather sinister and hostile move, to say the least. But the US has monopoly positions also, much stronger and more far-reaching than China's. I have just not chosen to use them. There was never a reason for me to do so until now, capital letters. The letter they sent is many pages long and details with great specificity each and every element that they want to withhold from other nations. Things that were routine are no longer routine at all. I have not spoken to President Xi because there was no reason to do so. This was a real surprise, not only to me, but to all the leaders of the free world. I was to meet President Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so. The Chinese letters were especially inappropriate in that this was the day that after 3,000 years of bedlam and fighting, there is peace in the Middle East. I wonder if that timing was coincidental. Dependent on what China says about the hostile order that they have just put out, I will be forced, as the President of the United States of America, to financially counter their move. For every element that they've been able to monopolize, we have two. I never thought it would come to this, but perhaps, as with all things, the time has come. Ultimately, though potentially painful, it will be a very good thing in the end for the USA. One of the policies that we are calculating at this moment is a massive increase of tariffs on Chinese products coming into the United States of America. There are many other countermeasures that are likewise under serious consideration. Thank you for your attention on this matter. So that was posted whilst the markets were open, and as a result of that, we saw the markets starting to tumble. The S&P 500 fell by around 2.7%, the worst single day since the spring of 2025. The Nasdaq, which is more exposed to tech stocks, tumbled by nearly 3.6%, and the Dow Jones was down by almost 900 points. So this was one of the worst days of 2025. Now, as you heard, Donald Trump didn't actually specify what he was going to do. He just said that there was a potential massive increase in the tariffs being applied against Chinese imports into the USA. But following the closure of the markets, he then posted this onto Truth Social. It has just been learned that China has taken an extraordinarily aggressive position on trade in sending an extremely hostile letter to the world, stating that they were going to, effective November the 1st, 2025, impose large-scale export controls on virtually every product they make, and some not even made by them. This affects all countries without exception, and was obviously a plan devised by them years ago. It is absolutely unheard of in international trade and a moral disgrace in dealing with other nations. Based on the fact that China has taken this unprecedented position and speaking only for the USA and not other nations who are similarly threatened, starting the 1st of November 25 or sooner, depending on any further action or changes taken by China, the United States of America will impose a tariff of 100% on China over and above any tariff that they are currently paying. Also, on November the 1st, we will impose export controls on any and all critical software. It is impossible to believe that China would have taken such an action, but they have, and the rest is history. Thank you for your attention on this matter. So, what we've just heard there is that Donald Trump has applied an additional 100% tariff on top of the existing tariffs. Now, the existing tariffs on China are a little bit of a grey area because we've got a 30% tariff and then potentially another 10% for being a member of BRICS. So it's either 30 or 40% currently. So if you add another 100%, we're talking 130 or 140%, which is actually back where we started not long after the tariffs were announced, when we had the escalation between the USA and China, when China retaliated and applied tariffs against US imports into China, and we got up to 145%. And if you have a look at this table, it shows the impact of this on imports into the USA. So in 2024, you can see that the total value of imports from China to the USA was $439 billion. It's its biggest single trading partner. It's the biggest importer into the USA. So the 30% tariff that was being applied, or 40%, but let's call it 30%, added an extra 131.6 billion. If we then apply another 100% on top of that, then the $438 billion worth of imports in 2024 would have an additional cost of $570 billion. So that would take it over 1 trillion in terms of the cost. Now, clearly, there is going to be a huge reduction in demand if you're applying 130% cost increase onto all of those imports. One of the reasons why things are imported from China is because they're cheap. It's cheaper than sourcing it from elsewhere. If you're more than doubling the price, then obviously they're not as cheap, and therefore other companies and people might decide to buy from elsewhere. So this is a real threat to China's exports. And obviously, if we add the 40% tariff, then the situation would be materially worse. But I don't think it's worth going into too much forensic detail on those numbers, because it's pretty obvious that if you're more than doubling the price, that's going to affect not just all of the businesses in China, but also all of the businesses in the USA that are importing all of these goods. If you've been sourcing your materials or parts or components or things that you're selling on into the USA from China, and the price is going up by 130%, then your business potentially could be dead in the water. Nobody might want to buy those products if you're more than doubling the price. So it's not just Chinese businesses that will be impacted. Lots of US businesses will see a huge increase in their costs, and this could cause chaos in those companies. And that's one of the reasons why global stock markets have started to plunge, because what we are seeing again is the trade war between the USA and China reigniting. And this could have a really big impact on lots of US businesses that are listed, so their stock market price goes down. But also, it's going to push up inflation in the USA, because if we see price increases of 130% on all of these goods, then obviously that's going to push inflation higher than it is right now. And inflation targets in the USA are set at 2%. So if you're seeing a huge increase in prices, that's going to cause difficulty for lots of companies and consumers. And of course, the Fed is trying to reduce interest rates at the moment to stimulate the US economy, because the economy has been slowing down. It's not growing as fast as everybody expected it to. And so they want to cut rates to try to encourage companies and individuals to borrow money and then expand and spend. However, if inflation starts to take off as a result of these increase in tariffs, then the Fed may be forced to start increasing interest rates again. And that's the last thing that Donald Trump would want. because that's putting the brakes on the economy at a time when he wants to be pressing down on the accelerator. So the uncertainty caused by this announcement has caused chaos in the financial markets. And unfortunately, because that second announcement confirming the 100% tariff from the 1st of November was made after the markets closed, it's likely that we will see the stock markets falling further when they reopen on Monday. Now, how far they fall, nobody really knows, because one of the uncertain factors is what China is going to do in response to this. They've come out and said that they don't agree with these tariffs and they don't agree with everything that Donald Trump has said. So last time, if we look at what happened when he announced the 145% tariff, China retaliated by applying tariffs onto imports from the USA. And the USA exported over $140 billion worth of goods to China in 2024. So it's actually its biggest export market. So it's really important to the US economy. All of those companies that are exporting into China are now concerned that if China retaliates and says, okay, we're putting a 100% tariff on US imports into China, then their businesses are going to be seriously affected. So these are the reasons why stock markets are falling, but also in terms of the global economy. We're talking about the two biggest economies in the world here. The USA is the biggest, China's the second biggest. So if they're damaging each other by applying lots of tariffs, then that means that they'll be buying less from the rest of the world. If their economies are not growing as fast as they thought they would, then they won't be buying as many things from other countries, other companies. And so this could have a really big global impact, not just on these two nations. Obviously, they will be most affected. Now, also, Donald Trump is saying that he's got other forms of retaliation because he believes that China is withholding the rare earths, which are needed for a variety of different applications. He's now saying that the USA could do a similar thing with lots of products that it's exporting. So we could see a genuine trade war really kicking off over the next 3 to 6 months if things don't calm down. If a rapid agreement is not achieved here, then this is going to cause chaos for the rest of 2025. And if we look at what happened first time around, it took a long time for the two sides to come together and reach a settlement. So I think it's likely that we're going to see this chaos continuing for at least the next few weeks, could be the next few months, could be right through to the end of 2025. And if that happens, then we're going to see a huge impact on the US economy, the Chinese economy, and the global economy. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video because tariffs have been probably the biggest topic that we've been discussing in 2025. Since Donald Trump took over as the president of the USA, that's been one of the biggest news stories of the year because he's applied tariffs on absolutely every country in the world. And I think we thought we'd got through the worst of it, that the biggest impact had happened back in April, May, June, and we're now getting to an equilibrium where the global economy and the US economy could start building from. But what we've seen from these announcements after the close of the markets on Friday is that the tariffs are now back at the forefront of everybody's mind, because if this tariff of 100% is applied against all imports from China on top of the existing tariffs of 30 or 40%, then that's really going to damage the level of imports that the USA is buying from China. So all of those Chinese businesses are going to suffer at a time when the Chinese economy is already struggling to achieve its 5% growth target for 2025. If you follow the channel, I'm sure you'll be fully aware of what's going on in China. So China needs to keep those exports going for the next few months, but they won't see anything like the level of demand if they're having a 130% tariff applied. So that's really bad news for China. It's also really bad news for the USA, because at a time when the US economy is slowing down and the Fed wants to reduce interest rates, increasing the tariffs to this level with the biggest single trading partner is going to push up inflation. It's going to cause problems in the economy, but also lots of companies are going to struggle because they've been buying things from China. That's where a lot of the manufacturing is based. So if their prices are more than doubling, then that's going to feed through into the price of US products that are using Chinese components and parts and things that are being bought in. So all of that is bad news. That means it'll be bad news for US consumers because prices will be going up. They'll have less money to spend at a time when we're going into the holiday season, which traditionally is the biggest profitable part of the year for a lot of companies. So they want to see a very strong end to the year. But what we could see if these tariffs do take effect from the 1st of November, is a very weak end to the year. We'll have Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the other holiday periods where people traditionally spend a lot of money. If prices are rising rapidly and there's chaos and uncertainty, then people may not do that. That will affect a lot of businesses and mean that the growth in 2025 will come in significantly lower than expected. And all of this is a bad start to 2026. Now, in terms of what's happening in the markets, as a result of the initial post that Donald Trump made on Friday, the markets fell significantly. However, he then followed up with another post with the 100% figure in there that I think was probably higher than everybody was expecting. So it's likely that the markets will continue falling when they reopen. And how far they fall and how rapidly really depends on whether or not there is an agreement made at some point in the very near future. But given what happened previously and the relations between the two countries and the fact that there is this notional meeting set for 2 weeks' time, I think it's unlikely that China will come back with any form of settlement at some point in the next few days. So it's likely this could roll on through to the end of October, possibly even beyond that. We could see the tariff actually being applied on the 1st of November. And if that happens, then we could see the markets falling rapidly because they're at all-time highs at the moment, but they've been very jittery over the past month or so. And so they're just waiting for some bad news to be announced. This looks like the bad news that the markets have been dreading. So we could see markets tumbling over the next few weeks. However, when you look at what's happened previously with these tariff discussions, they have bounced back very quickly. So if a deal is agreed, we could see the markets roaring back again. But who knows what's going to happen? It really depends on whether a settlement is agreed between China and the USA. If it isn't, then it will cause uncertainty and will definitely have a detrimental impact on the markets until a final position is agreed. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video, you found it useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and thank you so much to everyone that's subscribed. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button now. Thank you also to everyone that's supporting me. If you've signed up as a patron, I really appreciate your support. You can watch my videos advert-free and earlier than the normal release time on YouTube on Patreon. But thank you so much to everyone that signed up as a YouTube member, Buy Me a Coffee member, or has sent me a YouTube super thanks or bought me a coffee. Thank you for that support, and here's something to put a smile on your face.